back to the I Jupiter podcast. I am your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on Ernie Davieau. Ernie Davieau has had an encounter. It was quite a while ago, but it is one to remember. He was earlier on the channel, back when it was in a different iteration known as the Lost Frequency. I figure I'd give him the opportunity to come on a live and actually answer questions, as well as, of course, tell his encounter. It's quite incredible. If you keep finding yourself coming back to the I Jupiter podcast, please do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, write a little comment. Hey, what's up? What's cracking? Like anything that you could do to help me out. And you can also go over to Rumble and follow me over on Rumble. I have, I think, 57 on Rumble or something like 57 followers, and then on YouTube I have over the 1,000, which is great and wonderful. You can also download this in MP3 format. You can go over to it is called Spreaker, or you can find it on any of your favorite podcast apps, except for Apple at the moment. Still haven't gotten there. Very busy. I'm very sorry about that, but I will get there in due time. Let's see what else I want to say. So I normally do it on Wednesday. So I have, I think, this Wednesday, next Wednesday, maybe a Wednesday after that, and then it will be only on Friday. Also, guys, on the 14th, Valentine's Day, we are going to be having our 1-year anniversary, and there's going to be a bunch of people jumping in and saying hello. I think I invited like 20 different people. Ernie, I'm going to invite you as well, dude, if you want to come on and just talk for a couple minutes. It's 1-year anniversary. It's celebrating you guys, this 1 year that we've been doing this. I got 17 comments over there that I haven't been able to read quite yet because I'm doing this intro. If you guys are interested in merch, please do me a favor. Go down and click into the link below. Oh, come on now. Come on. Hi, it's not even up yet. There it is. There's my link, my merch. You can get yourself a t-shirt, a hat, poster, mug. It's all there. And that's pretty much it when it comes to all the house cleaning. So please, welcome to the I Jupiter podcast, Mr. Ernie Davieau.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Good to see you again. It's been about a year since the last time I've been on your show with you.
It's been a minute. It's true. It's been a minute. And we were talking in the green room, dude, and I didn't know that you were an Army vet, just like you didn't know. I'm an Army vet. I don't know which branch of the service you were in. And
Air Force.
We were talking about the thanks for your service. You were in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Oh, you were up in the palatial mansion compared to those grunts.
Oh yeah, the mansion.
Yeah, Ernie's a Vietnam vet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Eating filet mignon.
Yeah. Oh, we were stuck with the MREs, or I think back then they had K-Rats, I think they were called.
Yeah, we had them too, but when you're hungry, you're absolutely going to eat anything, no matter what anybody thinks. You're going to eat it, regardless. Might not be your favorite hot dog, but it's going to be when you're done.
Yeah, you'll find out quickly that what hunger means when you've done road march for quite a, I don't know, you might put a 10, 15, 10-mile road march behind you, and you're basically training, and then they throw down something there that kind of looks like sausage, but you'll eat it nonetheless.
Right.
Yeah, so you are doing some new. Please introduce yourself, Ernie, and please go ahead and tell me about New England Encounters on Etsy. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure. You have my name on here, and that's like Tom has his merch store here. We do also, but it's a little bit different on there. The t-shirts, we're trying to spearhead a movement here, because the general consensus is that we need science needs a expired, we'll call it, Bigfoot. Okay, two of them.
You've done a lot of YouTube.
Hypothesis. And truthfully, if we think about it, we're going to call it a DB from here on in. The DB doesn't tell any tales. Yeah, DBs don't tell any tales.
Yes.
All right, we have enough evidence. Right. A lot of people say, tracks are not evidence. Well, I got to tell you what, if you're going to go hunting with me and you decide you're going to sit in a field with no deer tracks, and I'm on another field with a lot of deer tracks, well, you got a choice. Come over with me and hunt the deer over there, or sit there and starve. Okay, because you need tracks. We have the tracks. We have we I mean, what's leaving the tracks, you know? That's just number one. But if you dig deep enough, and I really try to stress that to people when you're looking around for research, don't just read one little book. Read a lot of little books. I've had almost 40 years of reading, and when I first started off doing this, it was because of my encounter, and I wasn't doing anything other than studying myself. Why did this happen to me? And I was looking for, I don't know if you call it ghosting, or not ghosting, not even trolling. I was just watching these forums, different forums, and I was hoping to come across an eyewitness, either watching TV or whatever, that had an encounter like me. And for those of you who have never heard the encounter, when you do hear the encounter, you're going to understand. It would have been easy for me to come out and say I had seen a Bigfoot or a
Right.
saw Bay or forest person. It would have been a piece of cake, because the average encounter only lasts between 5 and 11 seconds. In governing on distance, and uh, is it dark out? Is it light out? Your lighting conditions. There's a lot that plays into there. You got the fight or flight going on. You got uncanny valley happening to you. We never really say somebody didn't see what they claim they seen. Because you believe it. And so we're not going to really challenge that on you because of the time period and everything else. What I do try to employ people to understand is, when you have that fight or flight going on there, and then you have the uncanny valley, I hear so often that it was ape-like. Well,
Hmm.
are we taking into consideration when we're younger? What happens is we look a lot different younger, than we do now. Fortunately for me, I did not look like this when I was 10 years old or 15 or 20 years old. Your facial features change,
Fortunately.
your bone structures change. Yeah. you know. So when you're looking at that, you're
So
looking
funny.
at older ones like the Patty film. Is she matronly? Is she just a heavy set adult? That happens. And then we have the other ones that just start describe them. But you can't take a look at something, and I've said it many times. Some of you have heard this about the poem, "The Blind Men and the Elephant." The six men from Indostan. All of them are blind. They're all going to go check out an elephant, and everybody and all of them touch something different on the elephant, and they're all coming up with a different analysis of what the elephant is: a snake, a tree stump, by touching its leg, or whatever, until they all get together. Okay, so you can't really come out and say that they're ape-like. If their arms are long, if you say they're long, was it hunched over? I mean, we have human beings that have Marvis, Marvel, and Hagler, exceptionally long
Hmm.
arms for a human being, abnormally
Great
long
boxer.
arms. So
Great
great boxer.
boxer.
So a lot of these things are coming into play here that you kind of have to understand. And the more, I'm going to just say, training that you have in anything, the better you're going to be at what you do, particularly as a researcher. If you see something, you're going to be looking for more information. Not just a picture that doesn't explain anything. We want to hear all of it that's going on around you. So that's me. And this story here is what we're doing is through the iterations on the t-shirts, we're trying to show the intelligence of these beings. And believe me, they're very intelligent. And those of you, again, who know my encounter, uh, it's right there. Some of it is right there. We know about the Ron Moorhead tapes, the Sierra sounds.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yep. Proven language. And now we're having other researchers come up with some of these things that are being analyzed. And again, it's something like that. When this happened to me, that was part of my encounter, that I actually seen two of them actually having a little conversation. And we'll probably get into that. Tom and I will get into that. And that is what I heard, but I didn't know anything about the Sierra Sounds until, I don't know, maybe a year later after this, and a year or so later after this. And as soon as I heard it, it was on TV. And as soon as I heard it, I just wanted to scream. I just wanted to give me Ron Moorhead's phone number so I can call the guy up and say, hey, guess what, Ron? That is them. I seen
Right.
them. So there's very few people that have
Because
ever
when you had your
seen them
encounter,
actually doing that. Yeah, and the same
right?
with
When you had
a
your
few.
encounter, this was a while. When was this? What year was this?
It was mid to late '80s, right around there. Mid to late '80s. That's
Okay,
what,
so
about
back
40
then,
years.
right? So when you run across something like Mr. Ron Moorhead, the great powerful Ron Moorhead,
Yeah,
and somebody who's legit and somebody who's taken those recordings to the university, I think it was Oregon or Idaho or something of that nature, and they were like, yeah, this is not within the range limit of a human being. It gives it a lot of validity. So someone like yourself who's probably made fun of or ostracized in some way wasn't able to speak out, and then when you see, you just want to like grab on. It's like, okay, I need to talk to you, and I can imagine that was just like an incredible feeling. So I could understand after I do know your encounter. So um, it's an incredible like validation about your own wits, about what you've seen. You're like, yes, I did see this. So yeah, I understand.
yeah, yeah. That was a actually it was Scott Nelson. He's a naval linguist. Okay, and he taught languages, and he wasn't even tipped off to what it was. He was just handed. This was handed off to him, and then he analyzed it and studied it, and then got back to Ron and his friends or whatever, and that's the what he came up with. And who would know more? I see a lot of people in the field out here that they're amateur archaeologists, amateur geologists, you name it, but you don't you don't have that resume that like a Scott Nelson or yeah, Scott Nelson has. There's a few other ones that do, but until we hear from them also, until people hand, because that costs money to have some things analyzed out there. But the you're right, Tom. That was one of the things that got me, and I've spoken about it several times. Is in the very beginning of the encounter when I had a visual on this particular one, because there was more than one. It would have been piece of cake for me just to say, oh, cool. I just seen myself a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or whatever you want to call it. And I could have gone down to the local bar in town and told a couple people down there and got myself a couple of free drinks, probably to calm myself down a little bit because it was at 35 yards. We did have that Google Earth drop a pin on my position and its position, because somebody who did a podcast with me and did all these iterations on the shirts, by the way. These are the drawings that they
Okay.
did. This is not AI work at all. And some of the sign language that it did, she dropped a pin on where it was and where I was, and she came up, I think it was 38 yards, and I was claiming 35. You know,
Woof.
I mean, 2, 3 yards, whatever. I used to bow hunt a lot too, so you have to be pretty good at judging that kind of a distance. But like I was saying, at that distance there, it would have been a piece of cake for me to get myself a drink, but it had to go on from there, and then it got to the point is where uh, I actually, my mind was racing after all of this, and on who am I going to tell this to? Who am I
Right.
going to talk to? Who in their right mind 38 years ago, 40 years ago, just about now, was ever going to listen to this? And for the people that are out there, think back on that. What was going on back then? They would have locked me up for sure, And now what we look at is
Yeah.
yeah, what we look at is, and I'm going to say, you people out there haven't progressed very far and I hate to use this word opinion. You think you have, okay, but our bias holds us down. In almost every single eyewitness encounter, there's a bit of information, no matter how long it was. And I've heard many. I've heard where it stepped out in the road and put its hand up. Isn't that some type of a sign right there? Like, hold on, wait a second, right there. So
Yeah.
there's all kinds of little things that they do, little I call them tidbits of information out there on them. We have to open up our minds to it. So we've
Yeah.
gone from the Gremlin film up to present day, and people are stuck on tracks. And now they've changed over the last couple of years to, and I say couple of years, to structures. Okay, well, now you're going to go down that one. You're going to be stuck on structures for a while. You have no idea what they mean, what they're doing there, how they got there, who put them there. Did they put them there? Did we put them there? Did the Boy Scouts put them there? What's going on there? The Forest Service? So you've got to take a look at the
Yeah.
whole gamut. You can't take a look at two letters out of an alphabet and say you have the whole alphabet. You need a lot of letters, and how are they used together? That's what it is that's out there right now. Um, when I first came on the scene about 7 years ago, everybody that I heard, everybody that I encountered out there was saying they don't get in trees, they don't eat meat.
Yeah.
I can absolutely assure you that they do get in trees, even though some people may say, come on, these things like are 500 to 1,000 pounds. Well, a gorilla can go up a tree. I can climb up a small tree and I'm well over to the 200-pound mark. If you know how to do it. Okay. I won't describe it to you. Go try it out, but you can do that. Okay. They got stuck in their little bias. This is what somebody else told them, and they figured that person knew what they were talking about. No, definitely they get in trees, and it's been around now for about 5 to 7 years. Okay, so that has changed a little
Wow.
bit. Now what we need to
Yeah.
change now is how intelligent are they? A lot of people out there want to say, well, Big Brother or the government, the ABC people, do they know about them? Why don't they tell us
Yeah.
about them? Well, the reason why they're not going to tell you about them because maybe they already know about them. And if they know about them, then let's face it right now. I mean, there's places that you can't build a house because maybe there's a lizard that nobody's seen in 200
Yeah.
years. All of a sudden, there's a lizard there. You're not building no house there. So same thing with this right here. You're going to have to set aside land
Okay.
for them. You know,
Right.
so you're
Especially if they're
that's not
seen as like a different humanoid or a different species. If we're all
exactly.
inclusive, if they want to push forward this inclusion and diversity, and then they want to push forth, the environmental protection, what would be much more inclusive and diverse than a Sasquatch or a forest person, as you refer to them as?
Yeah,
It's mind blowing. So Ernie, people, we're 20 minutes in, and I want to make, because I know you have a show after this. I would love people to hear. James did ask a question. We'll get to it in a second, but I believe it's better if Ernie goes through his encounter first, and then
sure.
we'll go through the questions in a minute. Okay, James, thank you so much for the question, by the way. So Ernie, please do me a favor one more time for me and for the people who've haven't heard it before. It's one of those ones, guys, that's going to make you question everything. Please, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. Thank you. Um, I'll start it off exactly the way that I tell people. If you ever repeat it, you should start it off this way here, just like you're watching Dances with Wolves. Tell it over and over and over again until you have emotion there, because no matter how many times I tell this, I can't stop myself from being that emotion. I relive it. I go back there. I see what is there. Now I'm in more control of it now after saying it many times than I was back when I very first started. Okay. So I don't hyperventilate a lot anymore. Okay. But anyways, I hunted that area many times. That area is a very spooky area. Never bothered
Well, where is
me.
this? Where is it at?
This would
Where is
be
it
in
at? Which
Massachusetts.
part of America?
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Massachusetts, Cobble Mountain area. They're going to be having a festival up there this June 7th this year, 2 miles from where I had my encounter. But anyways, I used to use topographical maps. I used to put all the deer runs on those topographical maps. I put the feeding areas, any bedding areas I found, any marks on trees, scrapes, rubs, things like that, water sources, all of that. So I had gone out that morning. This was Drake Mountain, um, and on one side of Drake Mountain, there's a farm with apple orchards, and not too far from the top of that mountain, there's another one on the other side of some apple orchards. I knew that it all depended on which way that wind was going to blow, how I was going to enter that area. And I knew they were bedded down in an area 3/4 of the way up that mountain that I used to like to call Old Stonehenge, because it had these like three big, huge boulders. I don't know. I think one of them was measured at like 70 feet, something like that. So it's just huge. But anyways, I knew they were bedded down in there. So I left early in the morning, parked down at the way down the bottom, about probably almost a mile away, I guess, and proceeded up the side of the mountain, got about 3/4 of the way up, right where that Stonehenge it was, and or is, it should still be there. And I heard some deer get up, and it's unmistakable. You can, if you ever go squirrel hunt or anything like that, when you hear a squirrel run, when you hear a deer run, they jump up, they make some noise there, and I knew that I had jumped them and I needed food. I needed food. I wanted to make a harvest. Okay. And this was, I think, about the last day of hunting season. And they proceeded to go straight across the top of that mountain. There's a ridge right there. And the fire road is actually part of what they call Uncas Path. It's named after an Indian. A lot of people don't know that. It's a different story. But I figured my only chance of getting one at this point, rather than try to get behind them, was to try to get out in front of them. And it was crispy out that morning. I mean, like there was frost out and everything. Uh, Kind of sporadic in some spots, and it was a lot of I say shale and sandstone stuff on this path. So it could be slippery, but there was like some leaves on the ground still and everything. So it could be crunchy too. So I decided what I was going to do is I was going to follow that path, because I knew that it was paralleling the same ridge that they were going up across the top. And I knew that at some point, that path that I was on that led all the way down the other side of the mountain to that apple orchard, when you reach the top of that mountain, it doglegged back around, it hooked back around. And in between that dog leg, there was a stone wall. And there was pines on one side, and the rest of it where I was coming up from and the deer were coming up from was all like saplings, and they had a lot of beech nut in there. So I proceeded to do what I call a two-step. I didn't want to sound like a bipedal. I wanted to sound, if they heard me, I wanted to sound like a four-legged animal. So you're going to go toe heel, try to be as quiet as you possibly can. So if they do hear you, they figure that you're probably a heavy squirrel, hopefully. And it worked. The whole time, in hindsight, there was something on the other side of them. I don't know. Could have been another one. I'd like to think that there was another one over there, because when you hear the rest of the story, you're probably going to say, yeah, there probably definitely was. But I managed to get out in front of them. So I was really happy with myself. But as I approached that dogleg area, I looked at it very, very well. I wanted to make sure there wasn't any squirrels or rabbits or grouse or anything like, or another deer bedded down where it was going to jump up, and these deer would take off in opposite direction, and I wouldn't get a shot at anything at all. I didn't see anything there. Not a single thing. I was basically what I would consider being in the open. I didn't really have any cover right there. So my objective was to take like a half squat position. I carried a 12 gauge loaded with slugs, semi-auto,
Oh yeah,
and I also,
oh
yeah,
yeah.
and I had a sidearm on me. And a lot of people say you can't hunt Massachusetts with a sidearm. Well, I wasn't hunting Massachusetts with a sidearm. I was hunting it with a 12 gauge shotgun. Okay, the
Well,
sidearm
that's what we
was,
hunt with in Maryland. I'm from Maryland, and you can't.
yeah,
There's a rifle line, and it's like up in Western Maryland, starting at, I can't
hmm,
remember the name of the state park. I think it's
yeah,
Piney Thorn State, and then over to the west. But in the area where I'm from, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel, Howard County, you can only use slugs or like 20 gauge or 12 gauge, but that's all you can
yeah,
use, because they don't
yeah.
go as far for
Massachusetts, yeah,
the safety.
Massachusetts, you can use buckshot, but I didn't like to use buckshot, even with a 12 gauge. You got to be fairly close, and I didn't like to just wound anything. But like I said, there wasn't anything there, and I could hear the deer coming. So I set up my position right there for an ambush, a half squat position. Had my 12 pointed right at, there was like a good size opening there because I had some old, what we call old world pine trees, or big fat old pine trees, not a lot of them, but just enough right there. But I could hear them coming through the beech nuts, the saplings on that other side of that stone wall. And I picked up movement on my 9 o'clock on my left hand side, just just out of my peripheral, just picked up in my peripheral, I should say. Just if I turned my head a little bit, and that that drew my attention enough because I didn't want to be given away on what I was about to do here. So I looked over at it, and the silhouette looked like kind of like a deer laying down. I couldn't really see the head. The head was around the other side of the tree, even laying there. And if anybody's ever seen a deer laying down, they might say, well, maybe you've seen it close up or whatever. They might say, well, how could you mistake it? Well, it was a silhouette, you know, and laying down, I got news for you. You might mistake a man laying down for a lot of different things too.
True.
And yeah, it started punching up more towards that tree. So now I'm a little bit concerned there. I know that it's too bulky for a deer that might have been laying there, and I could understand why a deer might have been laying there. I'm thinking now that it's probably a bear, and I don't have a bear permit, and I don't want this thing ruining my day. Spotting me. Maybe there's cubs around in the tree or whatever. I don't need that going on. I didn't want to shoot it. So again, I got my shotgun on it, but I'm remaining this whole time. I'm trying to remain cognizant of everything going on the other side of that stone wall. And it started getting up more. Now it's like right up against the tree. Looks like it's probably got its right arm around the tree. And I'm like, that looks like a guy. There obviously was a man sleeping there or something. He got in here really, really early in the morning. And now he can hear the deer coming through, but his head's around the other side of that tree. So if these things come over that stone wall, he doesn't know that I'm here. I don't want to signal him that I'm here and give away my position. So I decide to move up just a tiny bit. So that way, if they come over that stone wall and they try to get between us and he's loaded up with buckshot or whatever, I'm not going to get hit. He's going to pick me up in his peripheral vision. Well, it was about that time, I'd say he kept getting up. And when I say
Right.
kept getting up, I'm talking like he was getting taller. He was definitely using that tree for cover, hugging that tree with his head on the other side of the tree. And now I'm really looking at it like this is not, if this is a man, it's absolutely the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen some big men in my life. And this was a big individual. And it was probably right around that time. I'm not quite sure exactly, but right around that time, all hell kind of broke loose on the other side of that stone. Probably just started a bit of a ruckus because I was looking at that tree, looking for a marker on that tree, like a little twig or a little piece of moss or anything, so that after all is said and done, I figured that I was going to go over there and measure off on that tree and on how big this guy was or this thing was on there. I didn't expect it to go the way that it did go. And I found a piece of moss over there. Well, all hell broke loose on the other side of that stone wall. I could hear not just rocks, I could hear boulders clacking, like clacking being thrown together. I could hear not branches breaking, I could hear limbs breaking. It sounded like something came out of one of the trees. And it sounded like if you took a baseball bat and went down to your local gym and got a 250-pound kick bag and you started smashing your bat into that thump noise it makes. That's what it sounded like. It was a knockdown drag out on the
Yes.
other side of that stone wall. Yeah. And that's when
Okay.
this thing just decided he was going to stick his head around my side of the tree. And when he stuck his head around my side of the tree, he was intent. He was looking straight over that stone wall, and he caught me in his peripheral. Just like if he would have been the hunter that I thought that he was, he caught me in his peripheral, and he looked right over at me. And he looked back over that stone wall, and then he did double take on me. Like he could not believe that I was standing there. And well, I couldn't believe that he was standing there. I mean, I didn't have any knowledge of Sasquatch or anything like that, but I can tell you what is I knew what it was, because at that point right there, he swung his right leg out a little bit further and brought that left leg around. He let go of that tree, all one move on that, and he faced me. And I knew right then and there that definitely that's a Sasquatch. That's 35 yards away or 38 yards, whatever you want to call it. That's exactly what this is. I don't
It's
know
so
which way this
interesting.
is going to go. Yeah, I got my
It's
12
so
gauge
interesting
pointed.
because normally people like Darren Franks was on here, and yeah, and they normally gets like they'll hear the encounters I hear normally, they'll hear something break or something like that, or they'll see a shadow, or like it'll kind of sneak up on them. But it seems in this case,
Yeah,
you were the one who snuck up on them. Well, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Not that you did it intentionally. You didn't know they were there. So
yeah,
that they presented themselves like that, like, hey, I'm here. You're like, that's incredible. Okay, yeah, please. I'm sorry. That was just
yeah.
something that came
It's
to
all
me.
right. Yeah, it was completely taken aback at the fact I was standing there. I couldn't believe I was standing there. And it faced me, and I got my 12 gauge pointer right at its chest. There's absolutely no way that I could miss. But I had my call it my druthers about it, because this thing was just massive, massive. And the other thing that I was thinking was that this knockdown drag out on the other side of that stone wall, there's obviously more than one. So if I shoot this thing, if this thing comes at me and I shoot him, then I'm probably not going to get out of here. It's not going to happen. And that's when he put his hands up about chest level, both hands, palms facing me, fingers to the sky, elbows into his waist. Yeah, like that. Only fingers right together like that.
Like,
And he pumps them twice at
like,
me.
oh,
And
whoa, oh my god,
yeah,
dude.
exactly. Right. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, like, I you got to try. I'm not even going to ask people to try to imagine right there. I mean, like I said in the beginning, it would have been a piece of cake if I would have seen it and it would have walked away or ran away or whatever. I could have gone down and got a beer or whatever. But no, it has to do this to me. And it's kind of winning me over. It's like trying to communicate with me. Okay. And
Right,
it starts walking towards me, and it's winning me over. And it bothered me years later that it knew how to approach me, because after listening to 411, David Pilates 411, but as it walked towards me, it makes another hand gesture towards me. It points uh, with its pointer finger, right hand, to the middle of my chest, and it points to the middle of its chest. you know. Um, I've looked it up. You can call it pig sign language, you can call it whatever you want. There's a lot of that in the Native American, because Native Americans traded with each other, and they traded with the voyeurs, the Canadian trappers, the half breeds. So they might have their own nuances on different hand signals, but you could understand it when you started putting it all together. And it proceeded to continue walking towards me. But every time it did something like that, it would look at me and almost cock its head, like it was looking at a child, like we would look at a child. Like, do you understand? Do you get this? In other words, it does not want me to let a round go or anything. I had lowered my shotgun. That one there, I had that's when I lowered my shotgun, because it did not seem hostile to me at all. It was trying to scope me out. It was trying to figure out how I got there, who I was, what the heck is going on
right.
with me. And as it got closer to me, it does another hand gesture. And I know people are thinking, well, how close is he right now? Well, hang on. He takes his hands again, same position with his elbows, and he puts his both hands out, palms down, fingers together, palms down. And then he's looking at me, and then he turns his palms up. I took that because of the situation. People want to tell me, he's asking for your gun. And you don't need no gun. You don't need my gun. That's for sure. Okay. I believe he was asking me for
It's
food.
mine.
He was trying to tell me that he had no food, and they were looking for food. That makes a lot of sense to me, you know. Um, he proceeded to keep walking towards me, and as he walked towards me, he made another hand gesture. He pointed over my left and over my right. Same pointer finger, right hand, both directions. And again, looked at me. He, like I said, he was looking to see if I'm understanding. He's still checking me out. And I am checking him out. I am looking at everything about this individual, except I'm not. So I already know it's not a female, so I don't need to be giving it the wrong impression. That's what I had in my mind, you know. And he did that pointer finger over my left and over my right, and I could see that he had blue eyes at that. This is how close he was at that point. He had blue eyes. I could see
Oh
his
my
skin
God.
tone, color of his skin, his hair. The drawings that you'll see on Etsy there. That was one of the questions that this artist, Sibylla, actually asked me. She goes, "How long was its hair?"
Yes, now I know who you're
And
talking
she,
about now. Now I know who you're
yes,
talking about.
yes,
Sorry, you asked me
eh,
earlier in the green room if I knew who I was talking about.
mm,
Now I know who you're talking about.
yes,
Don't know her by
hmm
name, but I know that she draws. I think she
great
helped out B
artist.
Moss as well in her encounter. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of people. But at that point, after that, it closed the gap even further. And when I first started telling my story, it was extremely difficult for me to tell this next part. And I used to say it was 5 yards, but if you ever heard me say this before, at 5 yards, you're gonna understand that it was much closer because it took its hand and held its hand out, its right hand. I seen the top of his hand or the back of its hand where we have hair, they have hair on their knuckles, on your fingers here. They have hair right
Yes.
there, right where you have hair. Everywhere you have hair, they have hair. Everywhere your hair is shorter, their hair is shorter. Where your hair is longer, their hair is longer. The skin was dark, at that distance. I would have said at 35 yards that skin was black. I would have said that the hair was black, but it wasn't. The hair was dark, 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 dark brown. You could mistake it for black. If you could see my eyebrows, some people might say that my eyebrows are black. Well, they are not white like the rest of my hair on my face and stuff. They're dark brown, very dark brown. Um, he held his hand out between the two of us, and I had to look down between us, so he was at about 5 feet away. I came up to just above his bicep, below his shoulder, but above his bicep, and he showed me his palm. And at that point, when he was doing that, mind you, I'm trying to remain cognizant of everything. I looked at the compass on my shotgun. Um, a lot of things. I checked my breath while he was still coming towards me. I was sucking all this information in. I was sure that at some point I was going to have to parlay some of this information back to him. I don't know where we were going to go with it. I didn't want to tick him off. And he seen me dropping my hand on my sidearm, obviously, because he was a little bit, I don't want to say agitated, but adamant that I look at his palm. He actually tapped his palm now, not just
Oh my.
pointed at it. He tapped his palm. So, like I said, who are you going to tell all this to? So my palm on my hand, my right hand was
Yeah.
just touching the grip on my pistol, just touching the grip. And I relinquished right there. And now I'm looking at his palm. He wants me to look at his palm. I'm going to look at his palm. Okay. And what I seen on his hand is exactly what we have on our hand. The markings on his hand were the same, except he had no lifeline. Um, Some people, ask me, were his fingers longer? Everything was in proportion. So I can tell you, his fingers were longer than my fingers, but I wasn't totally focused on that.
Yes.
I was focusing more on body proportions. Everything was proportional to him, the way he looked. Okay. Um, it was at that point I started relaying, because he looked at me. I relayed a couple of the sign language back to him, and he quarter turned towards that stone wall, and he let out three whoops, second and a half in between each whoop. Deliberate. It was absolutely deliberate. So now I know there is more on the other side of that stone wall. I'm glad I
Yeah.
didn't get nutty on him. Um, he looked back at me and bowed his head to me, just nodded his head, like what I was understanding was respect. What I was understanding about the finger to my chest and the finger to his chest is he recognized me as equal, like a brother or master of the
Yeah.
woods. How did you get here? Um, he looked back
Oh,
at me after
wow.
doing those three whoops, and he bowed his head towards me again. He looked over that stone wall, and he whistled, and we used whistles like that when we were hunting. When our hunting party was hunting, and he sounded just like one of us. Sounded just like a person whistling, like calling you on, like come here, over here. So that's when he looked at me one last time, and he's leaving the area, and he's going straight back where he came from, that tree. And he continues walking that way past that tree until he's about at the 55-yard mark out there, somewhere's around there. And again, a pin was dropped on my position, didn't change. So just his position where I seen him out there. And he turned towards me, and that was measured off, I think, at like maybe 58 yards and maybe even 60 yards. But I still stick to that's what I first said was 55 yards. And that's when I heard another one coming. It sounded like a freight train coming from that side of the stone wall where the saplings were. It was tearing through those saplings. It was going to cross that pathway there, that dogleg down, and then it would have to go over Drake Brook and out to him. And that was at least about 100-yard run. And I've shot deer on the run. And I'll tell you what, this would have been a chore trying to shoot this one, because this one was like elbows and heels, and it was cinnamon colored. And it got over to that one there, and it stood just a little bit over its shoulder, but maybe let's say neck level below the ear, but over the shoulder. So that was definitely taller than me. And they were both kind of key cornered towards me, and they started having their a little discussion going on, a little chatter, and that's where I heard the samurai chatter. That was that right
Oh,
there. And the big one, he pointed directly at me, and that little one put his head down a little bit to see underneath a little sapling branch there that was in its way, and looked back at the big one, and then snapped his head back at me like he couldn't believe I was there. I think the big one was ratting me out, saying, "How did this guy get here?" That's the only thing. I try to keep a sense of humor about some of this stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, I'd like to go track them. I want to track them, find out where they go, what do they do? Because it was what I would call a pretty friendly encounter. I was concerned, but I wasn't what I would say scared. I wanted to track and find out more about them. And the bigger one gave the hand signal to the smaller one that it wanted it to go around, like a semicircle around to my right. And he pointed to his chest and gave him that signal to go around to my right. And he pointed to his own chest and made that same semicircle, um, pointing out to where it was going to go around to my left hand side.
oh,
And
wow.
they split up. I figured they're going to flank me to keep an eye on me or whatever. But I knew I had to go over and I had to measure that tree. I had to, because I just needed all this information. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just felt that someday somebody's going to ask me, and I didn't want to say, I really didn't get any information at all. I think I just gave a lot of people a lot of information. I've been giving them this information on how intelligent these things really are. And I went over to that tree and I found that piece of moss on that tree. I stood up against that tree and I put my hand right on top of my head because I wasn't that tall, right on the top of my head, and took a little bit of a step backward so my hand was still on the tree. Then I measured up with my finger from there. I come up to 7 feet 8 inches tall, and it weighed anywhere north of 500 pounds. Some people tell me the shape that it was in. It was incredible, incredible shape. Um, it would easily take anybody like an Andre the Giant and just maybe literally just not just toss him out of a wrestling ring. I'm talking like toss him into the second aisle. This thing was just massive,
Wow.
massively cut up. It was cut, not just massive. It was literally cut up like a bodybuilder cut up. And because of the distance that it was from me, I could see that, from the hair, I could see the muscle groups on it, but that was pretty much it right there. And then to try to find somebody that would understand this, and that's why I I really came forward to make a stand because hoping somebody else would do this. Nobody has, but I've got a lot of empathy for eyewitnesses, get bullied in a lot of these forums and how they allow these things to go on. And everybody's interested in the IE, or the AI, the artificial intelligence, and everything else. And maybe it's because you figure that it's not it it looks too much like us, like Neanderthal. That's a description that I gave. Try giving a description of a human being that you know to somebody who's never seen that human being and have them draw it. It's very difficult.
It's
But
like
these
trying
things,
to try to describe Shaq to somebody in Nepal who doesn't have,
exactly,
television or something like that. How do you describe Shaquille
exactly,
O'Neal to somebody in Nepal?
exactly.
I think that would be something apt to what you're trying to say. Could you maybe go into a little bit more details, like maybe the facial structure? You hear things of like
Sure,
conical heads, some don't, some
sure,
do.
yeah,
And
sure.
at the same time, the question was at the beginning, do you believe this is a flesh and blood animal? And I think that question is answered according to Ernie's account, but you can also go into that as well if you'd like.
Well, there are people like Ron out there that Ron Moorhead that have studied quantum physics and everything else.
On his book,
I can tell.
yes.
Yeah, I can tell you this. There's some strange things going on there. But your question is it flesh and blood? Well, I can tell you right now, a ghost doesn't eat meat. Okay, that's for sure. All right. So
Good point.
that being said, let's say that let's here's a part that I have said before in my encounter that might satisfy some of these questions, because I met a man at a powwow and his name was Chief Ernest, and he's the great 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 grandson of, I believe, Sitting Bull. Okay, and I was
Okay.
brought because I needed somebody to talk to. So the uh, a couple of the people there brought me out back to speak with him. He happened to be at this powwow. It was an honor to meet him, but he asked a lot of questions. I answered them. I had questions for him. And this is what he said to me. He said, "You walk in both worlds. Perhaps maybe I walk through a veil or something. I don't know. Is that what happens to other people? I don't know that. I only know from my encounter, I only know things that I see and the way things act. You know, um, there's something strange going on right there. That's all I can tell people. There is something strange. What it is, we don't know, but I assure you, a DB is not going to tell you anything. Okay. Might tell you that it's flesh and blood at that moment, but it's not going to tell you if it had the capability to change any of that, to use quantum physics or frequencies, since
Uh-huh.
we could get into that whole subject right there, which would be another part of it. But I believe that because of the AI and our inability to cope with uncanny valley, we're stuck in a bias where it satisfies us. Okay, this is what it looks like over here. That's what it looks like. I've personally gotten a lot of encounters close up. And I'm talking close up. Not as close as this. Well, yeah, it was one. It was close as this. And all the descriptions are pretty much pretty much the same. What I witnessed was something that was more like and if I say Neanderthal, you maybe want to go look up Solo Man or something like that. Very few people have ever heard of, and an African American and a Native American because of the cheekbones, and the skin tone was like around. If you say like if I say the eyes were blue, husky blue, I'm going to say something like that, like there's sky blue and ocean blue, whatever. This was husky blue. The skin tone was more like if you've ever seen anybody maybe from Jamaica, their skin may look one color until the sun hits them and you're close enough to
Right.
notice it,
Okay.
and then it may be ashy, or it may be dark brown, or maybe just a dark brown with shades on it. Okay, so it doesn't appear to be just one color. That's what I seen. It seemed at 35 yards that the skin color was black, that the hair was black, but when it got up that close to me, I could now see light shining on it a lot better. And I could see that the hair was not hair, not fur. Hair was dark brown. Dark brown, with maybe even a little bit of a red tint to it, down near where the medulla should be, or whatever you want to call it. Um, the skin was the same way. The nose, I hear people say, "Well, it's ape-like." That's not fair. You describe that nose a little bit better. Does it look like
Okay.
like a boxer that got punched in the face a bunch of times and got flattened out? Or, not everybody has the same type of nose. You can say African American, but still not everybody has the same type of nose. Kind of flat, but not ape-like. Okay, and that's what I seen. The hands, fingernails, it was very clean. No, I didn't smell it. Definitely didn't smell it. It didn't stink. Maybe it went down to the reservoir and took a little bath before the big hunt, so they wouldn't get
Right.
smelled.
You would
Because
smell it
let's
too because
face it,
being a hunter like yourself, I'm sure you were downwind. So you would definitely smell it, I'd imagine.
I was, and those deer were downwind also, and at 5 feet away, yeah, I would have smelled them. You know,
Right.
uh, so
Interesting. Interesting. And it's the shape of its head. What you were saying, because you hear all these different. You have the
yeah,
patty like one they say. Then you have
yeah,
Daryl Denton's
conical,
account where it has like square
mhm,
teeth, and then there's the skunk
yeah,
ape, and there's the
mhm,
one
yeah,
where it looks like they say basically like a block or like a 4 foot eight, a four by
mhm,
eight piece of plywood with a head on it. Did this thing have a distinct neck that just looked like a bigger version of us, but with a slightly
yeah,
different build, or what
yeah.
was it like?
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't smile. Wasn't didn't I don't remember it smiling at me. I remember it checking me out and doing what it did, but I don't remember it smiling at me. So I really can't tell you about the teeth or anything like that. Daryl Denton was very close. That was the one that I was just kind of alluding to, is a very, very close encounter. There's other ones like Michigan Rob, what he's seen, and
Yes.
there's reasons why. And when we talk, is we kind of know, or we surmise the reasons why those do look a little bit different. You know, you're going to have that in human beings.
Right.
Those things going on. Never mind just different nationalities, just in human beings in the same neighborhood that you live in. You're gonna have tall, you're gonna have short, you're gonna have some people with, it might be suffering from something else, maybe I
Yes.
don't know, autism or whatever the
If
case
you
may
live in
be.
if you live in Europe, if you look at the people from I've been to Europe, I've lived in Europe many years. You see the people from Holland, there's a very distinct look to them as compared to somebody from Poland. You know what I mean? We as
Right.
humans have this racial bias, white skin, white da da da. Da. But if you that's not what we are. Then if you go to Italy, they look different. If you go to Portugal and Spain, they're all the same, but there's slight variation. So that makes complete and utter sense.
Correct.
I have a question here from Pamela, and it might seem off the wall, but maybe not since you're a man who's been
Yeah,
studying this.
I
What is
see
your
that.
blood
Yeah,
if you what is your blood type if you know that by any chance?
I do. I can tell you it's not RH negative.
It's not.
Yeah, it is not RH negative.
All
Okay.
right. Okay, because
So,
we seem to be people who because So you're in, that's interesting too, Pam. Maybe I've talked to my guests as well, but like people who experience paranormal or like the paranormal aspects of these entities,
Right,
these creatures, these forest creatures or forest
right.
humans. Some people run and talk, like the blue balls and like the
Yes,
sometimes they'll see glowing eyes, especially when it comes to
yes.
Dogman and stuff. Those people
Hmm.
seem to have more RH negative blood to them. And
Mm.
then the people who have had a counter more like you see them more. Maybe it's also the way our blood type then interacts with the environment and how we perceive them too. It just popped in my head. Um, this is
It's it's
they always
actually
like, yeah, please. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's actually an excellent question because somebody's actually doing a little bit of research here, trying to put a pattern together here. I can tell you one pattern that I found because I mentioned it, in the beginning with everybody is um, my frame of mind, and that really wasn't asked of me until I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, as my wife asked me that. What was my frame of mind? And then I started thinking, and I'm saying to myself, you know what? I need to ask everybody who's had close encounters, Terry Arnold being one of them. Okay. We got to talk a lot. Okay. Our frame of mind was all the same. And if you start listening to what people are talking about, like your bow hunters and stuff, how relaxed and everything, it's your frame of mind that we're finding through research right now that they're drawn to um, honesty, trust, loyalty, respect, things like that. Like a
Ah,
dog could read you, they can read you. They are
right.
drawn to that. They do not want anything to do with anybody who's warlike or vicious. Or I even have accounts by people who camped at Salt Fork that they've had things happen at the campground where only three individuals were having things thrown at them because they were drinking and they were swearing and raising their voice and everything. Everybody else was sitting near the fire and being peaceful. They were
Did
the
you say
only
Salt
ones that
Fork?
were Salt Fork, yeah. They
Oh
were
yeah,
the
yes.
only ones that,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. They were the only ones that
Crazy
were
place. I just recently
harassed
learned about
out
this
of there.
area. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I've
It's
recently
pretty
learned
good
about
there.
that area. Like it's an incredible place. I was
It's a
talking to Tim Gayhart.
huge area, amazing. But it was a frame of mind. Everybody
Right.
has the same frame of mind. My frame of mind that morning was because you're going to go into quantum physics and everything else, was to actually to become a deer, to get out in front of those deer. It was my frame of mind. I had to
To
become
think like
one
that.
with right. I had to walk in two worlds. That's exactly what
Right.
I was doing, and that was without telling Chief Ernest. And then he made that comment to me. So yeah, it's great that people are asking these questions to try to pattern. It's like, what's going on?
It's
Why different
such a
here?
fantastic, yeah, I'm sorry, Ernie. It's such a fantastic concept because I realize that too. Like if I run, because here in Mexico you have dogs in the streets everywhere. They're everywhere.
Right,
And if you're an aggressive person, they're going to look at you in a certain way. But if you look at a dog in the eyes and you give off this concept like, hey, look, I'm friendly and I'm not here to harm you,
right,
99% of the time they'll leave you alone. Or even if you're in a crowd, because I'm always around people that are for me unfamiliar, different languages. I've been all over Europe.
right.
And if you're open and kind, and I
Yes,
have a big personality, that's part of the reason why I have the show. Uh, but people are attracted to people who are open and are not there because you guys, everyone here who's listening has been to a party. It's happened probably to you as well, Ernie. You're in a party and everything's fine. You're having a good time. A certain group of individuals will walk in, or even before that, you'll have like a premonition. You'll feel something like this is
that's
going to
right.
turn bad, and I get out of
Yeah,
there. I always leave beforehand, and then I hear afterwards there was a big melee. Uh, but
exactly.
I love that. So your state of mind kind of
There's a
with the
lot to do with
quantum
it.
interesting has a lot to do with the form in which your encounter comes in. That's an incredible.
Yeah.
So they like to classify these encounters. I think this is what they would call a grade A or it's such an incredible
Yeah.
thing. I loved your candidates. You're very candid about it. You're very honest and open about it. I know you got to get up out of here, and is it is before Ernie's got about 10 more minutes that he can stay because he has another show to get on because of what he does. If you guys have any questions, we have a curious mindset being of okay. Let's see, we do have a remark. Uh, a curious mindset may be of a higher frequency. Interesting.
It is.
Yes. Yeah.
It is.
And
You
you
have
didn't feel any. Yeah. You've when he points at you and then points at you and then points at me, it's like we're the same.
yeah.
I'm doing the same thing. What blew me away too, Ernie, is the like, hey, on the other side of the rock, whoop, whatever the sound is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never heard it.
Yeah. That
And
was
you've had
intense.
other encounters since then?
Um that's a question a lot of people have asked me. Um if I'm trying to be diplomatic in answering this, even though this has happened to me, is I
That's fine.
still am skeptical of some things, and I'm more inclined, as you've heard me from the encounter, to try to track them afterwards. Okay. Now, if I
Mm.
heard one, which obviously I would know that it is one, I would not say that I had an encounter like this one again or seen one again. I would say I heard one again. It may be a class C encounter. Okay. But however they want to rank those. But have I seen more than the two that I've seen? No. If I feel that maybe something's that I'm seeing something in some bushes, I am the guy that's going to walk over there and check it out because I hunted up for a very long time, and I've been fooled before in the woods by deer or a rabbit or whatever have you. So I'm the guy that's going to walk over there and check it out for absolutely for sure. So no, I
Right.
have not seen them. Okay, they leave very subtle signs
Yeah.
that they're around.
Yeah. Did that. So what's your future plans, man? Are you going to some events where
Uh,
people can maybe meet you? Like, there's probably people who are going to see this who's had an encounter. This is kind of one of the reasons, whether it could be just the strangest thing, it could be a person who's had a poltergeist encounter like myself,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We've experienced something that most people don't. Um,
yes,
and it's hard to describe it, hard to hit the feeling, but you walk up to somebody who's had a similar experience to you and we're able to speak to you, it helps immensely. It helps immensely. You don't feel like you're all
yes,
alone in all this. So are you going to be at any conferences where people can meet you, or is there
yes,
anything in the future that you're going to be doing
yeah,
where people can maybe talk to you, or is
yeah,
there a place they can
absolutely.
come, maybe write you a message?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, just to start that answer off here is I really enjoy speaking with people who are extremely serious about research that are not biased and are excuse me are willing to try something, okay, and implement something, and then to understand that it's a mindset. They the, our next step is actually communication. Jane Goodall. I will be at the Cobble Mountain, we call it
Okay.
Cobble Mountain Critter Fest. It's the first one ever. It's 2 miles from where I had my encounter. It's the first one on the East Coast, I believe, actually. And they want to get this rolling because of that. There's been a lot of encounters right there. And that's why they're calling it what they call it. Again, I can't express enough to people. It's really about your frame of mind. Even if you have an encounter with a poltergeist or a ghost or whatever, it's what was your frame of mind when that was happening. Look inside yourself first. They used to trade with Native Americans. I assure you, they used to work with or trade with the voyeurs. Maybe show them where the beavers were because they didn't want the hides. They wanted the meat. The voyeurs wanted the hides and not the meat. So there was something going on there, and they've seen
Right.
wars. They've seen what we were like. They've seen Chief Joseph makes reference to them. and they seen him being chased all the way to the Canadian border. Okay, so they don't want any of that. So what's got me going now is helping researchers, serious researchers out to take this seriously and what to do, for to start off your communication rather than run. And at this conference here it's a beautiful thing because um it's geared all towards the kids. On the Vogel brothers are doing this along with Richie and Wojo, uh, a banter with Richie and Wojo. Um, all the monies are going towards the programs for the kids to teach them survival, teach them search and rescue. Okay, to teach them how to kayak, mountaineering, all kinds of things, and they come from all the schools. It doesn't matter if it's a public or a
That's
private
beautiful,
school.
man.
These gentlemen take care of them, and these gentlemen are very active. And it will be at the Moses Scout Reservation in Massachusetts, Russell, Massachusetts, I believe it is. And so people want to go. They're actually setting up 150 10 by 10 canvas tents on cement slabs for people with a bunk in there that you can rent out, and it's just unique, what they're doing, and that's what I'm interested in, on top of helping out some really
So
good
cool.
researchers and hearing some of the information myself from what's coming in that I don't really repeat because I'm still working on something here. We know how intelligent they are, folks. We don't need a DB. What we need to do is we need to band together and make a movement here. And please, you know, um, check out the Etsy store, my Etsy store here, and you'll see the shirts in there. Not everything on there is mine because that
Yes.
just happens to be Etsy.
Pull it up here.
Okay, but the T-shirts, you can have any color you
Here
want.
it
You
is
can
right
have
here.
it put
Here it
onto
is right here,
anything.
guys.
There you go. Thank you, Pam. Thank you. And you can put it on anything that you want, and the shipping is free. But we're pushing the sign language that it used during my encounter. And those drawings are the drawings that we got high definition for that to put on the shirts to help people out. So when people ask you about the shirt, you can tell them this is the real McCoy. It's not AI, real McCoy stuff. And this is what's going on. We're trying to educate the general public or whatever that we do not need a DB. Definitely, we do not. We need to pursue this on like a Jane
I,
Goodall, my hero. She had more
I
brass
agree
than
with you.
most men
I'm
have.
gonna, I'm gonna agree with you on this.
Yep.
I mean, you'll hear people like Wes Gurman. He's like, if I run across one of these things, I'm going to be honest with you. This is my point of view. I would bang at them. And I don't know if that's the right point of view. I mean, if they're being aggressive or something, you're being charged.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to protect yourself. But I think they understand that anyway.
Right.
So, or like Ernie says, guys, if you go out with somebody, the state of mind. If your state of mind is to go out there with an understanding, like I want to communicate with you, I think you're going to have different results than any type of aggression towards you anyway. I'm not saying don't go out armed and not protect yourself because there is other bad people in the forest as well,
Right.
like us.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that's amazing because I think a lot of things have been lost, like mountaineering, farming, taking care of yourself, good food.
Yeah.
And I think the children or younger people need that because it gives you a sense of direction. It gives you a sense of meaning and purpose. And that there is more than enough to go to this conference that you I've mentioned. What was the name of it one more time?
It's the Cabo Mountain Critter Festival, and it's in Massachusetts.
Cabo Mountain.
In Cabo Mountain
Right,
is actually the name of the area.
Okay, man. Thank you all. Thank you so much, very much, Ernie, for coming on today. I really appreciate it. It was, I think, a better interview because I kind of knew what to expect, but at the same time, you've brought more. Like you filled in some of the holes and questions that I personally had that I didn't even have to ask. And you're very good at what you do. You're very candid, and it was an incredible conversation. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. You're welcome. Thank you for having me here.
All right, buddy. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you around, buddy. You're always in the chats writing something. You're very active.
I try to hit everybody up.
Everyone loved it. Thank you, Ernie. Love much. Fascinating experience. Yeah, we were talking about that too. It's very hard to be in all the chat forums and everything, and also have a full-time job and have a life. It's a lot of work. but we're here for
Yeah.
it, dude. And I really appreciate. Of all the points of views I've heard, yours is easily one of my favorites, and it's very well taken by me. I really liked it, man. Thank you.
I appreciate it. You're welcome.
Hello. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much, Ernie. There he is. He froze up on his end. We're freezing over. I will be getting a cable as soon as I possibly can. Oh, let's make sure Fisher popped on it real quick. Go over, give Fisher Spam some love. He has a wonderful show over there on the YouTubes as well. It's wonderful, fantastic. If you guys keep finding yourself coming back to the show, please go. If you have questions, there's people like Harlowens, who is a researcher, has a good heart. He's still new to this. People like Ernie, it's more of a he's had an encounter, but he has a my favorite philosophical approach when it comes to these things. With his encounter and being up with a sign language and actually trying to communicate, saying, "Are you understanding me?" I'm looking for it's just incredible. I loved every bit of it. We understand we have to put this on YouTube for entertainment purposes, but is it really? It's more. Is it educational? Is it entertainment? YouTube. You be the one that decides. But please channel and please come back for more. And remember, let me make sure I get to the right thing here. Remember, we are the eye, and we are aware.